9 out of 10 people are Bluey fans. The 10th person just isn't a fan yet because they haven't watched this amazing show. But did you know that despite being so good, we can still find a few small mistakes in the episodes of the Blue Puppy show?
I sense I've made a mistake of some kind.
One of these mistakes happens in the episode Backpackers, where we see Bandit and Chili reminiscing about their youth when they went traveling together, before they had kids. Now, instead of backpacks, they're carrying their 2 daughters, along with Socks and Muffin. And when they're on their porch, notice that near Bandit's feet and behind Chili's tail are some toys that Bingo and Bluey left lying around. But if you keep watching the episode, you'll see that in the very next scene, the toys simply vanish as if someone put them away, which is impossible considering the whole family is playing together, leading us to conclude that the animators forgot to place the items back in the scene. Tell me honestly, did you notice this mistake when you watched this episode? We've gathered 18 new mistakes in Bluey that you absolutely need to see. Check them out with us and jump into this wave as another episode of Cinewave begins. Each member of the Healer family has very specific markings on their fur, and in Bandit's case, the most noticeable one is the large dark blue spot that covers his entire head. Let me repeat, the blue spot covers his entire head. But that's not what happens in the episode Dance Mode, where we see that when Bingo tries to catch her parents' tails, as Bandit quickly turns around, we can see a light blue spot between his eyes that shouldn't be there. So we can definitely consider this a small animation mistake in the show.
So, how many can I get?
None, mate.
Aww.
We notice that something similar happens to Bluey in the episode Dirt. When Bandit sprays water on his daughter's faces with a hose, if we play the episode in slow motion, we'll see that the 2 purple spots on Bluey's head completely disappear, and the blue puppy, pun intended, turns completely blue. Speaking of mistakes related to the family's fur spots, we found 2 more animation errors in the same episode Backpackers, which we already mentioned earlier. Both are related to the scene where Bandit goes to buy croissants. When he reaches the vendor, we see that Bingo's spots are normal. We can see the spot on her head and the round spot on her back. But when he goes to get the money from his wallet, which is actually his youngest daughter, notice that for a brief moment, the spots on Bingo's head and back merge into one. However, as soon as the scene zooms out, you'll see that the spots have magically separated again. Additionally, we also notice that in the same sequence, as soon as Bandit grabs the banana, we see that Bluey's back spots are located further back and are barely visible. But when the scene cuts, the 2 spots are clearly visible on the side of the series' protagonist. But how is that possible when just half a second ago they were further back? It's definitely a big mystery to me. In the episode Blue Mountains, we noticed a small detail that went unnoticed by most viewers of Bluey. We see the entire Healer family having a picnic, and the girls and Chili decide to play by using Bandit's belly and legs as mountains. So they draw faces on their hands and pretend to be adventurers. And we can see that at a certain point in the episode, all 3 hands have smiles drawn on their faces. But when Bandit's Fox character appears, from one scene to the next, Bluey's hand's smile magically flips, and we see it turn into a sad face. And at no point do we see Bluey erase and redraw the smile on her hand. So, another small mistake. Speaking of spots, to ensure no family member is left out, we also found an episode where something similar happens with Chili. In the episode Zoo, when Bingo enters the Gorilla Bandit's cage, her mom gets quite startled. But in the next scene, we can see for a brief moment that as Chili approaches the wire fence, her face shows only brown and beige spots, and the white spot between her eyes has simply disappeared. Another mistake for our list. And since we found so many errors related to the Healer family's fur today, as a reference, let's comment below with #spot.
Oh, good morning, everybody. Say good morning, everyone.
In the episode Takeaway, we noticed some subtle animation details that triggered our error radar. The first one happens when Bandit is entering the restaurant to check if his order is ready. At that moment, you can see that the dad's belly looks exactly like his daughter Bluey's. In other words, completely light blue. But the detail here is that Bandit's belly fur is actually supposed to be yellow. This suggests that they might have run out of yellow paint that day. Or maybe someone just forgot to add the yellow part this time.
Can you imagine how easy this would be if you tidied them all away?
Pass the Parcel is definitely one of my favorite episodes, but that doesn't mean it's free from small mistakes. One of them happens during Chucky's birthday party, when Pat, his dad, creates a fairer version of the game where you pass the parcel. However, no one besides him and Jasper likes it. It seems that even Jasper's mom gets so frustrated that her hand weirdly ends up near her elbow in a very strange way. This is probably one of the creepiest errors in Bluey. Chili's design is likely one of the most challenging for the Bluey animators since she has more spots on her fur than the other characters. For instance, one signature spot of hers is the little white mark near her face. However, starting from Season 3, it's become quite common for that little spot to disappear from the series, as we can see in the episode Rain where the spot is completely missing, or when we meet Unicorse, also in Season 3. Since we're not sure if this was intentional, we're adding it to our list. In the very first episode of Bluey's first season, we spot a small continuity error. When the girls freeze their dad, they load his hands and arms with toys, but right after, they unfreeze him, and he tosses the toys into the air, scattering them all over the yard, as we can see. However, shortly after, when Bandit manages to freeze Bluey and carries her into the yard, you can see that all the toys have simply vanished. Still in the Magic Xylophone episode, right at the beginning, when we see Bandit picking up Bingo and pretending she's an instrument, notice that for a brief moment, the spots on her head and back merge, forming one big spot. But we know Bingo isn't really like that, so this is a small animation mistake. In the same scene, while Dad is playing the bingo instrument, Bluey starts dancing. And at this moment, we can see that the purple spots on her side keep switching between one single small round spot and two round spots. I might be getting a little dizzy, but were there one or two spots on our protagonist's back after all? If you love watching animated shows and movies as much as we do, then you're definitely in the right place. Now, all you need to do is subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, alright? Back to the takeaway episode, we noticed another small animation mistake. When Bandit goes inside to check if the food is ready, we see that the person serving him has completely white fur. However, when he enters a second time to check again, we can see that this character actually has a gray spot on part of their head. This becomes even clearer when she steps out to hand the food to Bandit and his daughters. This is something almost nobody noticed in Bluey. In the episode Keepy Uppy, we found a pretty interesting logic error. When the main character of the series wakes up early in the morning, everything seems fine in her room, right? Wrong! If we look closely, we'll notice that there's no pillow on Bluey's bed. To be honest, I think there was supposed to be one, but the animation team must have forgotten to include it.
Maybe not.
We know that someday, when she's older, Bingo will attend Bluey's school, but that day hasn't come yet, and she currently studies in Mrs. Retriever's class, along with several classmates like Leela and Missy, for example. So if all that is true, what are Missy and another one of Bingo's classmates, who we see when Bluey is chasing Rusty, doing on the swings at Calypso's school? This is definitely a mistake that almost nobody noticed in the Blue Pup show. Thinking about it, maybe it was put there on purpose, because it really doesn't make any sense. Don't you agree? Back to the Magic Xylophone episode, remember when we mentioned that Bingo's spots merged into one big spot? The same thing happens to Bingo herself later in this same episode. We notice this when the little girl grabs her dad's leg and talks to her younger sister. It's definitely a small animation error, but nothing that makes the episode any less fun. In the Duck Cake episode, we found a mistake that's connected to Bluey's biggest Easter egg, the long dog. We don't see it anywhere in the episode. But as we approach the end, when Bandit sits on the floor, feeling down because he can't get his cake right, we spot it on top of the pantry in the dining room. The thing is, when Chili and Bingo get home a little bit later and we get a closer look at the cabinet, if we look up, we'll notice that the long dog has vanished. It's almost as if it was never there. Could this long dog have mastered the ninja art of disappearing? Our list of 18 mistakes has come to an end, but that doesn't mean you can't keep hanging out with us. Just click on one of the 2 videos popping up on your screen right now. That way you can have some more fun with us. Thanks, and see you next time.